realized I've been recording for the last 45 seconds. Okay.
That's all right. We'll cut that out.
All right. So this is Tad, and he's from Australia, which is almost on the exact opposite side of the planet from where I'm at right now. And Tad, you said you play, it's called Battlecry LARP, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Go ahead and tell us what that's about, because I've honestly never heard of that before.
So Battlecry LARP is a game that I created. So we're primarily a battle game, which is essentially very similar to how AmpGuard works in that we run scenarios on a weekly basis, and we have different game modes and things like that, you know, capture the flag, take and hold, King of the Hill, that sort of stuff. So
okay.
The sort of systems, I guess, run very similar to yours. It's a class-based system as well, where people have abilities depending on the class they choose. And then there's a tiers system built into those classes, so you get stronger as you go through the tiers. So again, very, very similar to how you guys operate. So it's not too different. However, there is a linear storyline which goes along with our games, which we've developed ourselves. So every single battle, the outcome actually has a flow-on effect for the next week. And so it could actually affect the direction of the storyline depending on, you know, if one side gets a run of wins, or if another side tanks a couple of games in a row, then, you know, there's actually going to be a flow-on effect for the storyline and the plot.
Okay. So it's kind of like a cross between a boffer sport, but also a role-play based type of game as well.
Yes, for that aspect. So the other aspect we have is the freeforms, which are political-based freeforms. So we've got essentially our two main factions are the ones fighting each other. And the heads of nation come together for these annual events that we hold called freeforms. Now, they're a parallel LARP style thing, so there's actually no combat whatsoever involved in it. And as a head of nation, you come to this meeting and you have your resources to negotiate with your nation. You've got your goals that your nation has, as well as personal goals that may actually even conflict with your nation, things that you want to get done as a certain character. So it's all pre-made and given to you. You turn up, you play the game, and essentially you barter, you beg, you borrow, you steal, you try and wheel and deal with other heads of nation to try and get what you need and get what you want, as well as helping the overall side put themselves in good stead for victory. Essentially, you're moving your troops around the map, the strategy map at the same time. So there's a big map of the world planted with all the troop movements and everything like that. And you work as a room to plot your next moves, where you're going to move your troops, where you're going to move your soldiers, and what you're going to attack and defend. And then that actually decides the next 12 months of battle games. So they're linked together. So depending on how well you fight those games to what happens the next freeform.
It kind of sounds like a board game I played when I was a kid. Have you ever heard of the game Risk?
Definitely. It's very much like Risk. Essentially, it's like a geopolitical game. So you take territories. If you're successful, you can take and hold a territory. And then what you do with that territory is then up to you. You can raze it to the ground. You can you can loot it. You can try and take it and assimilate it. It depends on what you want to try and spend your resources doing.
Okay. Has there ever been a time where like almost the entire area was taken over by one particular faction?
So we're actually pretty new. We've only been operating for 1.5 years now, and we've only gone through the cycle essentially once. We were supposed to have another one, but obviously with COVID, everything's had a spanner in the works. Actually, it could end up like that, where a single faction does steamroll the others. But you know, it really depends on, I guess, you know, how things pan out. And I feel like as soon as that starts happening, people like the underdog. I don't know what it is, but people love fighting for the underdog. So I feel like there'll be a rally on one side and take all that territory back pretty quick.
Okay. So in this whole concept, the battle cry, did I say that right?
Yeah, you did.
Battle cry. So who are you in this game then?
As a character?
Yes.
So I actually haven't created a character in my own world yet. I spend all my time in the back end running the game. So I do all of the story writing and plot writing, a lot of the rules decisions, and a lot of the actual physical organizing of the game. I run the officials team and train the officials. And I've been pouring a lot of my time and effort into doing a lot of proper back-end setup. So we've got a very comprehensive code of conduct, which has, all the different policies in it and that sort of thing, concussion procedures and those sorts of things. And I've had to write all that from scratch. So that's where most of my time has been going into. Eventually, when I get around to actually playing the game, I'm going to be probably having a character on each side. It's one of those things where I can't really pick a team as the creator. Both of them are created pretty. I've really put a lot of effort into making sure the sides are grey, and that's something that really irritates me when I go to games and it's good versus evil, because no one really describes themselves as evil. Like no one thinks they're evil or they're doing the wrong thing. They think they're in the right. So we created a world that reflects that. Essentially, everyone's got blood on their hands. No one's innocent in this, but at the same time, they have justification for what they're doing, and they believe they're in the right. So you've got two teams that are actually technically good and evil.
Right. I've heard that with most LARPing games, when you put everybody who wants to be the main character of their own story all together, you have something totally different besides a standard story anymore.
Yeah.
So you basically turned into a dungeon master and created this whole full spectrum. The other question I have for you is this. Where did this all come from? Like, what made you decide, I want to go out and create a new LARP and I want to get people interested in it? Where did this whole idea come from?
Look, building and creating things for other people to enjoy is something that sparked in me pretty early on. It started, I got into LARP essentially in 2009-10. So basically December 2009. And I was dragged along to a LARP. I really didn't want to go. He had to bribe me with food and to pay my entry price in order to go along with him. I thought it was incredibly nerdy and wasn't really interested in going down that path. He took me along, and then fast forward, I guess, 12 months, he ended up quitting, and I ended up moving forward and taking on a position as an official and getting really fully involved in it. So I've got to thank him for that. Thank you, Paul, if you're watching. And essentially, I developed, I guess, an interest in creating things that other people would see enjoyment with. So I love DMing games, D&D, 5th Ed, and I wanted to get into video game creation. But at the same time, I think one of the most important things and one of the big things that changed my life was video game addiction. It's something that it's very serious, and it's not something that gets looked at the moment. It's very closely linked to mental health, and which is another underfunded area globally. And it's one of those things where it can be massively detrimental to people's health and well-being. Being addicted to video games, it's very antisocial, and people tend to very much withdraw and become a little bit self-detrimental by spending all their time and energy on video games at the expense of everything else. That happened to me. I lost pretty much everything. And essentially, that was when I decided that I wanted to create a LARP group to really try and pull people away from the computers and the technology and the vacuum that is that industry. So I wanted to make a game that was, I guess, very reminiscent and very resemblant of that video game experience, with a class-based system, kind of like World of Warcraft, Warsong Gulch style, Arathi Basin battlegrounds. So that was kind of what I was aiming for initially. So I built the class-based system very close to the D&D and the Warcraft system itself. And then I started implementing, those sorts of mechanics and things like that with the capturing flags and the resources and things like that. And it evolved from there. So it's always been something that I've wanted to do, but I guess it took it took a big shift in my life in order to really push it in motion. But once it started, it's you can't stop it now.
Right. So you identified a problem that you had and decided, I'm not just going to fix this for me. I'm going to take it to the next level and fix it for other people as well, and help try to get more people out of that cage, we'll say, of a problem. Wow. I'd never thought of it that way. That's actually a pretty cool idea.
Yeah. So
okay.
it's something that's pretty unspoken, and I think LARP really taps into it.
Absolutely. So I know you also have a YouTube channel. If our viewers want to follow you anywhere, either on YouTube or any other social media site, where would they need to go?
So it's really easy to find us. Battlecry LARP, one word, on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube. You'll find us on those. But I guess you could probably put a link in the comments.
Oh, absolutely. You can count on that. I'm definitely going to put one down in the description.
Cool.
Well, we've hit our time limit. So, is there anything else you want to say before we go ahead and get out of here?
If any of you guys find your way down under in your travels, you're more than welcome to come try Battlecry. We'll always welcome travelers and people like that to our games. But I think the biggest thing that people need to remember when they're doing LARP, and I guess it all sort of gets away from them and things start turning south, is you really need to remember exactly why you're there in the first place. And that's enjoyment, fun, and community. That's the reason you joined in the first place. That's the reason you do it, and that's why you pour all that money, time, and effort in there. You're not doing it to win. You're not doing it to prove anything. You're doing it to have fun, and fun goes above everything else. As we say in our code of conduct, fun before victory. And the other thing as well is that real world shit stays at the door. Sorry guys, but you really need to remember that the focus here is on an escape, a bit of fun, and a safe space. So community is everything, and leave your personal crap at the door.
Absolutely. Well, Tad, thank you. Appreciate you taking time out of your day, even though it's like, what is it, like 10:30 in the morning over there?
Certainly is.
Well, until we get to our next episode, thanks, guys. Stay safe and have fun.